He pointed at the seal on my wall and said, "That symbol works for me, judge, not the other way around." If you enjoy courtroom drama where I explain how justice served really happens, stay with me and share your thoughts when the verdict lands. I am a judge, and I have learned something simple over many years. The loudest person in the room is not always the one in control. Real control comes from steady rules, clear facts, and the courage to be fair even when it feels uncomfortable. This is a dramatized story inspired by courtroom lessons, and every name, place, and detail is fictional. Before I tell you about this case, I want you to understand how I try to hold balance. Once, I had a case with a tired single mother who missed a court date because her child was sick. She did not try to trick anyone. She was just overwhelmed. That day reminded me that compassion matters because life is hard. But I also remember another case where a person lied again and again, even after being warned. That taught me that accountability matters too, because truth is what keeps the law strong. A good legal story is rarely about one thing. It is usually about both. The case I am about to describe happened in Riverton City Court on a morning when the hallway was packed and the air felt tight. The defendant was a powerful local politician named Jordan Blake. He was not just a familiar face. He was the kind of man whose name opened doors. He had a confident smile, a calm voice for cameras, and a habit of treating every room like his office. If you've ever wondered what happens when someone with influence tries to bend the law, keep listening until I explain why the verdict mattered. Across the courtroom sat Maria Torres, the person most affected by this case. Maria was a city records clerk. Her job was simple but important. She kept track of public requests, building permits, and official forms. Most people never noticed her work, and that was fine with her. She liked quiet. She liked order. She liked doing things the right way. Maria was also the whistleblower. That means she spoke up when she believed something wrong was happening, even though it could cost her. I want to say this clearly. She was not chasing attention. She looked nervous that day. Her hands held a folder close to her chest like it was a shield. The claim was that Jordan Blake pressured Maria to fix dates on paperwork for a grant. The grant was meant to help small neighborhood projects. The dates mattered because the money had rules. It had to be requested and approved in the right order. The city said Jordan tried to make it look like everything was done correctly, even though it was not. Maria said she refused, and after that, she began getting calls and messages that made her feel unsafe at work. Nothing in this case involved graphic harm, but fear can still hurt people. Maria told me she started jumping when her phone rang. She stopped taking her lunch break outside. She asked coworkers to walk with her to her car after dark. That kind of stress changes a person's life, even if no one can see it from the outside. Jordan arrived with his lawyer, Marcus Reed. Marcus was polished and prepared, the kind of attorney who speaks with smooth confidence. Jordan wore a neat suit and a small flag pin on his lapel. When he sat down, he did not look at Maria. He looked at the gallery as if he were checking who came to watch. I began the hearing the way I always do. I explained that the courtroom is a place for facts, not fame. I reminded everyone that the law applies the same way to every person, whether they are a student, a business owner, or an elected official. Jordan nodded, but it did not feel like agreement. It felt like patience, like he was waiting for me to finish so he could take over. When Maria's attorney started speaking, Jordan leaned toward Marcus and whispered, loud enough for others to hear, "This won't go anywhere." I raised my eyes. "Mr. Blake," I said calmly, "we will proceed with respect." Jordan smiled at me. "Of course, Judge," he said, "I respect the court." Then he added, still smiling, "I just know how these things work." As the first witness began, the tension grew in small steps. Olivia Hayes, an investigator for the city ethics office, testified about the paperwork timeline. She spoke in plain terms. She did not use fancy words. She said the form showed changes made after deadlines. She said the computer system tracked who opened and edited certain files. She also explained something important for the audience. Computer records are like footprints. They do not tell you everything, but they can show where someone went and when. Marcus Reed pushed back. He suggested Maria was confused. He suggested she misunderstood instructions. He suggested she was upset about office politics and decided to blame Jordan. Jordan then asked to speak. I allow that sometimes because I want to see whether a person accepts responsibility or avoids it. Jordan stood, buttoned his jacket, and looked straight at me. Judge, he said, I have served this city for years. I bring jobs here. I bring funding here. I'm not going to have my name dragged through the mud by a clerk who wants to feel important. He finally looked at Maria. Ms. Torres, he said, this is your chance to be smart. You can walk away from this and keep your little job. If you're getting a strong reaction to his words, leave a comment later about whether you think power changes how people speak to others. I watched Maria carefully. Her face went pale, but she did not explode. She did not insult him. She took a breath and asked to speak when it was her turn. When Maria testified, her voice was soft, but her words were steady. She told me Jordan came into her office without an appointment. She said he closed the door behind him and smiled like they were friends. She said he pointed to a folder and told her to clean it up. She asked what he meant. He said, fix the dates so it matches the story. Maria said she refused. She told him the records were public and the rules were clear. She said, I told him I could not do that and still keep my job. Jordan laughed once, a short laugh that carried in the room. You don't understand jobs, he said. I help people get jobs. I did not raise my voice, but I did stop him. Mr. Blake, I said, you will not interrupt a witness. He lifted his hands. Judge, I'm just correcting her. Maria continued. She explained that after she refused, she began receiving calls from an unknown number. The caller never used violent language, but the message was still clear. The caller said things like, people who cause trouble don't last long in city work, and be careful about what you say in public. Then Maria said something that tightened the room. She said, my mother is sick, and I take care of her. When I heard those calls, I thought, if I lose my job, what happens to her? The courtroom became completely silent. In that silence, I saw Jordan's smile fade for a moment. It was small, like a mask slipping. Marcus Reed placed a hand on Jordan's arm, like he wanted him to stay still. When the silence passed, Marcus stood and argued that phone calls could come from anyone. He suggested Maria was guessing. He said fear does not equal proof. On that point, he was not wrong. Fear alone is not evidence. But fear can be a sign that something needs to be examined closely. I asked Olivia Hayes what steps they took to confirm the calls. Olivia explained they requested phone records from Maria's provider, not the content of calls, just the timing and numbers. She said the unknown number used a prepaid plan, making it harder to trace. Jordan leaned back in his chair and looked almost pleased. He spoke without asking. See, he said, harder to trace. This is a waste of time. I held my gaze on him. Mr. Blake, this is not a performance. He tilted his head and said the line I will never forget. Judge, you were appointed, he said. I'm elected. Remember who the people chose. If you want more legal stories where I break down these moments in simple language, follow the channel so you don't miss the next verdict. That statement was not a violent threat, but it was still a pressure tactic. It was Jordan trying to place himself above the court by using politics like a shield. This is where many people misunderstand how the law works. The court is not a popularity contest. The court is meant to be a steady place, even when public opinions change. I answered him calmly. The people chose you to serve, I said, not to control the courtroom. Jordan's eyes narrowed, and he pointed at the seal on my wall. That symbol works for me, Judge, he said, not the other way around. I did not respond with anger. I did not call him names. I simply explained a boundary. In this room, I said, the law is the authority, not your title, not your connections, not your future plans. Marcus Reed asked for a short break. I granted it, not to help either side, but to cool the air. During the break, Maria sat with her hands folded, staring at the floor. Jordan stood near the door, speaking to someone on his phone in a low voice. I could not hear the words, and it did not matter. What mattered was the message he was trying to send, that he was never truly alone. When we returned, Marcus Reed changed tactics. He said Jordan was being too direct, but meant no harm. He said Jordan had a busy schedule and handled pressure poorly. He said Maria was taking normal political talk and turning it into a crisis. Then the twist arrived, and it did not come from the city investigator. It came from a quiet witness named Daniel Carter. Daniel was a junior staff member in Jordan's office. He did not look proud to be there. He looked nervous, like he had not slept. He told me he requested to speak after he saw Maria sitting in the hallway before court. He said, I couldn't pretend anymore. Marcus Reed objected right away. He said Daniel was unreliable. He said Daniel wanted attention. But I listened because the court must allow truth to enter, even when it arrives late. Daniel testified that he was told to bring a small envelope to Maria's office 2 days after she refused to change the records. He said Jordan handed him the envelope and said, tell her this makes the problem disappear. Daniel said he did not know what was inside. He assumed it was a gift card or something. But when he reached Maria's office, she refused to accept it. She told him, if I take anything, I become part of it. Daniel said Maria looked scared, but also strong. Then Daniel said the part that changed everything. He said Jordan later told him to handle the phone calls and handed him a prepaid phone. Daniel admitted he made the calls. The courtroom became completely silent again. This silence was not only shock, it was clarity. The room understood that Maria was not imagining things. She was not being dramatic. There was a plan, and it had a chain of decisions behind it. If you've stayed with me this far, keep going, because the verdict is where accountability and compassion both have to show up. Marcus Reed stood and tried to protect his client. He argued that Daniel acted alone. He argued that Daniel misunderstood. He argued that Jordan never directly told Daniel to pressure Maria. He said, there is no recording of Mr. Blake saying, make the calls. I looked at Daniel. Why did you come forward today? I asked. Daniel swallowed hard. Because it's wrong, he said. And because Mr. Blake told me last night that if this goes bad, he'll say I did everything without him. That statement mattered. Not because I like drama, but because it showed a pattern. It showed Jordan's habit of using people as tools, then stepping away when consequences arrived. No, I want to be careful here. In any courtroom drama, it is easy to want a fast ending. But the law does not work on feelings. It works on proof and fair reasoning. So I explained my thinking out loud in simple words. The law protects public records because they belong to the people, I said. When someone tries to change those records to fit a story, it hurts public trust. And when someone pressures a witness, it attacks the truth itself. I also explained compassion because even in hard cases, it matters. Compassion does not mean ignoring what happened, I said. It means I consider why people made choices and whether they can change. Mr. Carter came forward, admitted his part, and told the truth even though it could cost him. That matters when I decide what consequences fit. Then I turned to Jordan Blake. Mr. Blake, I said, you are not on trial for being popular. You are on trial for using your position to push someone into wrongdoing, then trying to silence her when she refused. Jordan stood and tried one last time to take control. He spoke louder, aiming past me toward the gallery. This is political, he said. You do this and you'll regret it. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue with him. I simply said, sit down, Mr. Blake. And he did. It was not because he suddenly respected me. It was because he finally realized the courtroom is not a place where influence wins by force of personality. The courtroom is where the law asks one question, what did you do, and what does fairness require now? Then I delivered the verdict. I found that Jordan Blake misused his position by attempting to pressure a city worker to change public records and by helping create an effort to scare her into silence. I also found that his words in court showed a lack of accountability because he tried to place himself above the process instead of facing it with honesty. My verdict was firm, but it was not about revenge. I ordered Jordan to step away from any public role during a set period because public trust must be protected. I ordered strict supervision and clear limits on contact because Maria deserved safety and peace. I ordered a program focused on ethics and decision making because learning is part of real justice served. I also ordered repayment for Maria's work disruption and counseling support because harm is not only physical, and the court should address it in a practical way. For Daniel Carter, I accepted a reduced consequence because he came forward, admitted his actions, and helped restore the truth. I explained that the law often considers cooperation because it encourages honesty and helps the court see what really happened. If this outcome surprised you, tell me whether you think truth telling should change a person's consequences. After the verdict, the courtroom did not burst into noise. It did not celebrate. It did not mock anyone. It went quiet in a different way, like a heavy lesson settling into the benches. Maria closed her eyes for a second and let out a small breath. She did not look triumphant. She looked relieved, like someone who had been carrying fear in her chest and could finally put it down. A coworker beside her held her hand. Maria nodded once, simple and grateful. Jordan stood very still. The confident smile was gone. His face looked tight, but I did not take pleasure in that. I do not measure success by how small I can make someone feel. I measure success by whether the law stayed steady and whether the victim was treated with dignity. As people filed out, I stayed in my chair for a moment, thinking about how easy it is for power to confuse a person. Titles can make some people forget that every system has limits. The courtroom is one of those limits, not to punish success, but to protect fairness. And that is where I will end this legal story with the lesson I carried home that day. The law is not perfect, but it has a purpose. It exists so a quiet worker like Maria Torres can say no to wrongdoing and not be crushed for it. It exists so public trust does not become a private toy. And it exists so even a powerful politician must face accountability when he crosses the line. Compassion still matters too. It matters because people can change when they finally see the harm they caused. But compassion must never be used as an excuse to erase truth. In my courtroom, and in any court that serves the public, justice served means the same rules, the same respect, and the same protection for everyone. If this story made you think about fairness, share it with someone who believes the law should protect the quiet people just as much as the powerful ones.